Hello, and a very, very warm welcome to Hannah, not David, from Big Fish, Little Fish, who's joining me for this episode of From SME to You, my little podcast that talks to the people that Stephen Bartlett can't be bothered to. And I am going to go out and start saying that I am a massive fan of Big Fish, Little Fish events. We've attended quite a few. They are a wonderful initiative, and I can't wait to hear more from the founder herself. So Hannah, can you give us a little bit of an introduction of what you do and how you got to be where you are currently running this amazing show?
Well, hello, and thank you very much for those kind words. So Big Fish, Little Fish is a family rave, which is, I always say, it does what it says on the tin, basically. It is an actual rave that is made for families. So it's not a baby disco, and it's not, so there's lots of things it's not, but I always it's a very positive experience, so I always prefer to try and describe exactly what it is, even if that's sometimes a bit strange to people. We're also celebrating our 10th anniversary this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And we are the original family rave, and perhaps later on I will go on about why that's quite an important thing, because we have been very popular, we've been very successful, and so we have had to deal with a lot of copycats, and that's given some challenges as well in terms of developing and evolving the business. But back to your question, how did we start? How did we come up with the idea, which I guess is interesting to people as they're starting, if they're starting their own business, how do you come up with these ideas? Well, in our case, we come very much from a place of authenticity, to use that dreaded sort of modern word, in that it was created by myself for my family. And I couldn't find anything else like it. So I created it from my own understanding, my own experience of something I wanted to do. In terms of where I was with my life, I'd actually had a very long career in the civil service. I was very successful. I was a director of policing in the Home Office, and I'd worked in the civil service for 20 years. So it was, Whitehall civil servant. And it was great. I'd had a wonderful time. I had my children quite late on in life. I had them in my early 40s. I have two. And so they had them very close together as well. So what happened is I had quite a long break from being in the civil service, because I had maternity leave. I only went back for 3 months, and I went on maternity leave again for my second child. So by the time I actually went back properly to work, and I did go back full time, it was very different. It was different government. A lot of the people I'd worked with left. They were shrinking the civil service. All the policies had changed, and it was quite a sort of like difficult and toxic environment. And therefore, I decided that, with support of my partner David, that I would leave. So I did. And so then I took a sort of golden goodbye and left, which they were very foolish to let me go, but hey, what can you do? Then I was a full-time mum. That wasn't the long-term plan, but that's what initially happened. So I was there with my two very young children, under 3 years old, both of them, and I was doing all the sort of, as you would expect, all the baby groups and this, that, and the other, and they were lovely, but they're quite dull. And and they're really nice. They're really nice, and I met some really good friends, and it was great, and it did what it was supposed to do in many ways, and got me out of the house and kept me more or less sane. But also, I've a lifetime, whilst also having this lovely career that I'd had, I've had a lifetime love of dance music, raving, clubbing, whatever you want to call it, and festival going. And so when my kids were very, very young, I started taking them to festivals. So my daughter went to Glastonbury first time when she was 4 months old, and we sort of carried on this thing of just taking them both to, I had me and my partner, so it was like, we take one each, so we take home one each thing. And anyway, so, but what I experienced at music festivals, that I could still be me and enjoy the music that I've always loved, but the kids enjoyed it as well. They liked the people and the colours and the excitement and the freedom that you could just see. It was a really amazing multi-sensory environment, and I was happy and they were happy and my partner was happy. We were all just lovely time. So when I suddenly find myself at this loose end. Well, not loose end, I was trying to take care of the kids, but also I needed to like do something else with my life.
Yes, for yourself.
I just came up with the idea that I really wanted to set up in business, which was quite an interesting one, because I was quite institutionalized, as people tend to be if they've worked 20 years for
in the same
government department, you know. So it was quite a leap. I was in my early to mid 40s, and I was supported. I actually had a professional career mentor who was amazing, actually, and she kind of unlocked me, if you like, and I suddenly felt like I was I was in my early 20s again, like anything was possible. So she kind of helped me oversee those issues around, you know, how on earth how do I get a website sorted out, what do I do? But fundamentally I decided what I wanted to do was create a family rave, as in inspired by my understanding about what was enjoyable for families with very young children, and my appreciation and love of club culture, festivals and rest. I do something that was an event that people with young children could go to, sort of indoors in, you know, the winter months it was originally envisaged as. So the first one we ever did was July 2013 in a very large pub at the end of my road in Brixton. And what many people will experience when they say, and I had no idea. I'm not an events planner.
This is what I was going to ask you. How did you think or realize that this was going to be something that people wanted to come to? Because again, you're breaking the mold in there. This is not something that existed before. So did you speak to other mums in your social network?
I got myself really excited about wanting to do it because there was nothing else like it. And I thought, I really want to do this because I really want to go to it.
Yes.
And I think I can do it. I initially spoke to all my friends, and I've got friends going back decades, and it was almost like I'd spent my whole life piecing together my management board. I had one person who knew about, I had loads of friends in the music business and in various, on the legal aspects and all these sorts of things. And I had lots of friends with kids. There's all sorts of bits, and people knew DJs and stuff like that. So I just kind of said, I want to do this. And lots of people came forward with advice. And then I also reached out and told all my friends this, including, and very importantly this, I told some virtual forums, some online forums that I was on for parents. This is a very important point. And I was thought, if I told everyone I'm going to do it, I've got to do it. It was like I embarrassed myself into do it. And I thought, right now I just have to think through logically how I make this happen, and then just make it happen, which is kind of my approach to it. But the important thing about telling people on the online parents forum, it was Mumsnet actually, I was on a group with women, it was all women, who'd all had children within the same 3-month period. And it was all our eldest children who are now sort of 3-4 years old.
Yeah.
And so there was this like little, really like hardcore of us who'd all stayed chatting online. And so I told them I was going to do it. And somebody came forward from that forum and said, I live close to you. I would like to come and help you do this. Do you mind? So, and that was about how I met Natasha Morabito, who is still very much, she's Director of Communications for Big Fish Little Fish, and has been involved ever since. So what we started to do is thought, right, okay, well, we've got to, so I actually doorstepped a venue, because if you start phoning up venues saying you want to run a family rave, they'd go, no, not doing that.
What is this?
So it was like, what is that? Go away. Yeah. And I didn't have any evidence about what it'd be like, and they all thought I was all bonkers. So in the end, there was a new big pub opening up at the end of my road, and I doorstepped them, and I just went and bought a pint and stood at the bar and asked to speak to the manager and just talked through it. And they went, all right, we'll give that a go. So that was how that bit happened. And then we started, so me and Tash, and then I got some DJs, and I invited all my friends, and I got my friends to be the stewards, and I worked through exactly how it would work and how, all these sorts of things. Now, it's changed a lot from that very first one, but what we did is we invited, me and Tash would just go around and going to shops and all sorts of things, and people, we start talking, you know, just be doing our shopping and stuff like that, talking to people in like the greengrocers in Brixton, and they'd start talking about that they had young twins. They'd say, oh, would you like to come to this thing that I'm doing in a month's time? And they say, yeah. And so, you know, we just invited people, including Time Out and Evening Standard. And we didn't really know what we were doing, and we just invited them. We ran it, and the event was a huge success, had about 250 people.
That's amazing. That's a huge turnout.
It was never envisaged to be like small. It was just like, this is how I want it to be. We'll do it like that, and then people will like it or they won't. So, you know, and luckily people absolutely loved it. They kind of got where it was coming from, and we ended up with a 2-page article in the Evening Standard praising it. Page and Time Out also thinking this was the best thing ever. And it just, and ever since, it's kind of grown organically from then. I always say that we all the people involved with delivering Big Fish, Little Fish, we all deliver it from the same place of understanding what it's like to be a family and how you enjoy events with your kids. And you know, everything has been designed through the lens of understanding I am my own audience, and it just took off from there, really. But our biggest advertising for Big Fish, Little Fish is the people who come to the events themselves telling all their friends, saying, you've got to go to this, it's great. We did our 7th sold out gig at Fabric recently in January, and I was stood at the bar, and there was a woman there, and I was just talking to her, and she said, this is the absolute best thing about being a parent, is coming to Big Fish, Little Fish, which I thought was a little bit OTT, but was very nice, and sort of it does capture something about the kind of way that people, you know, it's not going to be for everyone. You know, coming and listening to 2 hours of drum and bass with your 4-year-old isn't going to be for everyone. You know, there are other aspects to it. We have the over the dance floor, we have the sort of multi-sensory thing with the bubbles and the foam and the
balloons,
but you know, and the giant balloons. Now every single aspect has been developed just because I thought, do you know what, wouldn't it be nice if it, you know, and the parachute dance which we do at the end, and people think that's taken from baby groups, and it's not. It was actually inspired by the way the whirly gig always used to do a parachute dance at the end, except they didn't dance under it. So a Big Fish, Little Fish, everybody dances underneath it, and the whirly gig, everybody sat on the floor. It was like their chill out moment at the end. So I mean, I've got 2 friends who became engaged and actually then got married underneath the parachute at the whirly. Married under the parachute, but they got engaged. So, you know, it was kind of drawing from all these different aspects of my understanding about what's nice, not just for a family, but for adults and kids and stuff. So we do dress up themes. We do a lovely crafting area.
Yes.
Which kind of drawn from the sort of festival experience. I can't expect a 4-year-old to just go and dance to drum and bass and techno for 2 hours. Some of them do. But we have some lovely crafting going on. We have a little baby chill out space. And so, yeah, that was it really. It kind of, we started initially and it was just sell out after sell out at the end of this pub. So fairly quickly, we looked to expanding to other places in London. So I first of all, then in about November that year, I played, or was it October? Anyway, we played in North London, and that was quite exciting because I was like, oh, will it work north of the river?
North of the river is different.
North of the river, good Lord. And yet, lo and behold, yes, it did. And similarly, we worked in terms of developing a local fan base. We've got in terms of like the communications, obviously we've got a website, and you know, ever evolving use of different social media channels. We were quite early adopters of Facebook and things through Facebook. Twitter's good for businesses. Excuse me. But we always kept this idea of real sort of grassroots thing, so that we always get out into an area and connect with hyper local businesses, nurseries, schools, just meeting people on the street, going into cafes, talking to them, flyering them, things like that. We've always had this sort of quite strong grassroots kind of thing. And so we always say Big Fish Love, we pride ourselves in our attention to customer service and the way that we try and work with and help customers. And that's not just in terms of the delivery of the party, although obviously that's a very important part of it, but it's all the other aspects as well. So I'm far more likely to give a guest list to a woman that I meet in the park who, I once gave a guest list to a lady who was in about crying, pushing her baby along, and I just went up to check she was okay. And it turned out that her husband had just left her and she was in a terrible state. So we sat down, had a bit of a chat, and I just, just checked that she had local friends and stuff that she could connect with and things. But then also, invited her to the next event locally as our guest. I said, look, just come along, bring a mate with you as well, with the kids. You'll be able, and that's because one of the key things we've found is not only do the kids enjoy it, but very importantly, actually, the parents really love our events. It gives them back a bit of themselves, which I'm hoping something that you can that echoes with your own experience of them. And too often, our audience is mainly families with 0 to 8-year-olds, and I think too often that our children experience us being very stressed. We're mostly lacking sleep. And we're mostly telling them no, or you can't do that, I stop doing that, and all this sort of thing. And yet a Big Fish, Little Fish, everybody relaxes and the parents are happy, and the kids are like, I've got a happy parent, it's a rarity, and then they're dancing together. And it's just lovely. And and just to be clear, we do treat grown-ups as grown-ups. We hold them in licensed premises. You can have a drink. That's something perhaps I should have said sort of earlier on, because then you start thinking, oh, I now can see why people were a bit like, what are you doing? And people can be trusted to have a pint of beer and not forget they're a parent, and are fundamentally there with their children.
I think it's also part of your, it's 2 to 4 party people. So that you're not going as if you were in the real fabric setting all nighter.
No, exactly. So we're typically on a Sunday or Saturday weekend afternoon, a couple of hours in the middle of the afternoon, after toddler nap time and before the witching hour, when all children go crazy and they're possessed. And again, all this sort of thing, the detail of the delivery of these parties, when they are, the sorts of place they're in, was fundamentally informed by my understanding, my experience as a parent of young children myself. Quite often you'll find family events are done early in the morning, like 10 or 11 a.m. And I was just like, no, do you know what, we'll do it in the middle of the afternoon, and that's okay, because people will have a drink as well, and it'll be like a festival, and they'll just relax, and it'll be really nice.
You don't have to rush through the door, because you've got,
no,
getting kids out and ready is a challenge in itself. So
exactly. So I just thought, and it was that sort of thing. It was like it was that sort of thing that went into it. And then you mentioned at the beginning about pricing of tickets. So that's actually, I'll say a little bit about this, but it's, how do I capture it? It was very much informed by, we are a quality event, so we're not cheap as chips, right? We have amazing DJs, we have world famous DJs. We've had people like Basement Jaxx, we've had Aphrodite, we've had Jumping Jack Frost, we've had Chris in Perspective, we've had London Electricity, you name them, we've had all sorts. Alex Patterson of the Orb, anyway, loads and loads and loads. We've had about 300 over the years, and they come back to us again and again and again, because we're nice and we're fun. Anyway, so we're a proper quality event, so we're not cheap as chips, but I did want to make it as affordable as possible, so it's inclusive, and for that reason babies are free. And at the point, if you're coming along with a very young baby, then really, and people need to know that it's kind of for the grown-ups, as in you'll have your baby strapped to your front, and the baby will enjoy it, as my baby's enjoyed going to festivals. But fundamentally, it's about the grown-ups saying, oh, this is great, I'm enjoying the music, I'm having a dance and a glass of wine, and it's just all is well with the world. But the babies are free, you see, so it's just like that works. And then also you need to look around at the market. So I had a little look at, and I still do, it's very important to look around at the market all the time for things in your area. There was nothing like us. So I knew I was creating everything from scratch, but I looked at, how much they charge for cinema tickets, theatre tickets, other family events.
Exactly,
So
because your
all
competition
those
is
sorts of
not just similar events, it's anything that a family could be spending their money on,
exactly.
entertaining the children.
So you had to look all around the market. And that's, we have to revisit the prices every year or so. We held our prices for 2 years now. Since we came back, we didn't put them up this year, even though all our costs are going up. I wanted to keep it as affordable as possible with the cost of living crisis and things like that. I want to keep us as an affordable luxury, is the way I term it. So and interestingly, people are still buying tickets. I mean, you can just see the number of sold out events that we're still running and continue to do.
I think a year do you have at the moment?
Sorry?
How many events every year?
So I'm the CEO, the founder, and I specifically run the events in London and the Southeast. But since about 2015, I've also had regional managers that run events as their own little businesses.
Yes. Almost like a license model?
Yeah. And again, we very much developed something that works for us, which is unlike anything else. That's the nice thing about, creating a paradigm, as they say, or smashing the paradigm, or whatever it is I do, is that you make it, and I've always been clear with Big Fish, Little Fish, we make it up as we go along in the nicest way possible. That's what we do. So whilst I do look at best practice and other things, I also don't assume that that's therefore the way that I would do it.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question about how many events do I run across the country, across the UK, oh God, about, I don't know, including festival appearances, which we do quite a lot now, so about 50 a year, something like that, 50 or 60 a year, maybe.
Pretty much every week.
And then we've got some down in Australia. We've got 3 teams in Australia, and they run here as well. We do have an Ireland team. They haven't been running for a while, but they will come back again. And we're hoping to expand internationally over this next 12-month period as well, in places like Netherlands, Germany, and the United States. So, and interestingly, the way I'm sort of jumping in and suggesting almost like your next question, how did we find those managers? Well, similar to the way we found our audience, really, again, using one of those dreaded modern terms, organically.
Yeah.
They've all been fans of what we do. And we've connected with various, sometimes they've been people who are already managers for us saying, I've got a friend who's moved to so-and-so and they'd be a good manager. So there's a lot of them, most of them are just fans. They've been to that's how it started with the first one, Neil and Abby, who now are down in the Southwest. They were fans of us, and they were going to they're a DJing duo.
Is she the midwife? Is she the midwife?
Yes, midwife to mum. Yeah, Abby and Neil. And so and they DJ as High 8 and Little My, and they were going, that I booked them to DJ in Hackney for us, and then I got a call from Neil saying, actually we won't be able to play because we're moving to the Southwest. You couldn't come do one down in the Southwest, could you? And I said, do you know what, even though I am from Bristol originally, I was like, there's no way I'm going all the way down to Devon for the week, I can't be bothered. And so I said, but why don't you do it? And why don't we work out a way to make it work? So you do it. So that's how we got our first regional manager, and it's sprung from there. Most of them are just fans. The lady who now runs the West Midlands, Sophie Parek, and her husband Rakesh, they actually, God, how many years now? About 5 years ago, we took a photo of them at an event in Birmingham. And we used it a lot for our public, and they said, oh, thank you so much, that's so nice. So we just started talking to them. A couple of years after that, I desperately needed somebody to come and help me run an event at a festival in Oxford. I just said, don't suppose you fancy coming to Oxford, you just help me out with it. And they said, yeah, we'll come, bring the kids. Yeah. They did that. And now a couple of years after that, or one or 2 years after that, they took on the mantle of running the events in the West Midlands, and now she's going to be doing the ones in the Northwest as well. So it just kind of grows, again, organically. And importantly, again, because I always say, don't just take it as it's always been done like this, so that's how we must do things from other events and this and that. And so all I say is, to be a regional manager, you do need to be a parent. Because you can only fundamentally understand it if you're a parent, and you need to be a really big fan of dance music, and that's it. I said I actually prefer it if you don't have any marketing or events experience, because it will actually have put you into ways of thinking and behaving which might not work. Now, Sophie's very interesting actually, because she does actually have a marketing degree. I didn't hold it against her though. And
thank you, very kind.
Didn't hold it against her. And she says that doing Big Fish Little Fish has taught her far more about marketing than doing the marketing degree has. She goes, it's just a world of difference. And it's also the ownership that you have. Everybody, I always say, Big Fish Little Fish, it's like a bit, it's not my baby, it's actually like a little bit of me, it's a little bit of my soul that went into it. And all the regional managers feel the same way about their events. It's very sort of personal involvement, up to including the fact that a lot of the managers these days will, you know, pop on the stage and dance about in big gold wings and all the rest of it. That all started from doing the foam and bubble machines from the stage. It develops into a little bit of sort of stagecraft.
That there's been a lot, as you've been mentioning, that has been new to you, a lot that has been a learning curve. And so what would you say have been the key challenges that you have overcome, and how did you do that? What have you learned? What would you tell 2013 Hannah in order to be enormously successful as you are with Big Fish Little Fish?
Well, I think initially some of the challenges in the first year or two are quite different to things, the sort of big ones that have happened since. And I think anybody starting up in business needs to be aware of the fact that, to start with, it is an enormous amount of work. It can be quite overwhelming, because also, you know, with mine was done on a basis that there was very few startup costs, and I needed it to the way, you know, and I didn't have any investors or things like that, and so I needed it to be making money. So I needed to do everything myself, if you like, because I didn't have a vast amount of money to pay for, you know, an entire an IT expert to help when my computer crashed or my printer stopped working. And so you have to be unafraid to learn everything. And, you know, and as I said, I was an old bird when I started doing this. I was already in my sort of like, I was already about 43, and I had to learn how to, I had to understand what a domain was and buy one and this and so, and so I had to learn loads, which was very exciting. To actually be able to learn so many new and exciting skills, when, you know, I thought that sort of phase of my life, if you like, was sort of over. So you have to be up for learning it, you have to be enthusiastic. The challenges will be that things happen that you just think, I haven't got anybody to turn to who can fix this problem for me. Or you know, there were some odd things like you know, we had somebody come along from the Daily Mail who fundamentally doesn't really fit with the ethos. You know, I've spoken quite clearly about we had an ethos. Big Fish Little Fish has had an ethos from the very beginning, which we've always stuck to, and we keep coming back to, and that keeps us true to what we're about. And Daily Mail's fundamentally not that. They're like the anti-fun people who don't like people having a nice time in a lovely, wholesome way. And so somebody came along, we didn't know she was going to be there, and she wrote this article, and actually it was fine, to be honest with you. The main problem was that, in fact, then it gave me the problem that the woman from the Daily Mail actually, and she was a very nice person because she phoned me up, and she quite liked the event. I thought, I don't know, but they did an all-for headline, you know, with these bonkers people. So but so those sort of, and like, it's just me. And yes, people like Natasha and David, my partner, being very supportive, and some other people who work on Big Fish, Little Fish. But fundamentally, when I worked in the Home Office, when things went wrong, you had hundreds of people in the press office to help you sort out any issues. Whereas it was just like, what do I say? How do I respond? What is the right thing to do? That is amplified even more with the way that social media works now.
Of course.
But one of the things that I've learned, so yes, you've got to work hard. Also, don't be afraid that things aren't going to be perfect. Just start doing something, right?
Do it.
Right? Just do it. Just do it. It won't be perfect. I say that we learn from every single event that we ever do, and we continue to do that. You will evolve. You will understand better how to do the thing that you are doing. Your ways of communicating will change and all the time as well. And as I just said, something like with social media. So very recently, this year we started last year actually we started a TikTok account. I don't understand TikTok. It's something my kids use, but I every now and again I just end up getting quite addicted to it. It's really fun. But I gave it to Sophie in the West Midlands, who's a young woman, and I said, look, you know, she said, look, I'll do some of the Instagram stuff and things like that for all of us. I said, yeah, great, that's super. And then she said, I think we should have a TikTok account to you know, because that's the other thing, is our audience evolve as well, because they grow out, their families grow out, and then we have the new ones coming in, and it's how you reach them and how you communicate with them, all the rest of it. So again, this is all about evolving the business, understanding the market that you're in. You know, I have effectively created this market, but it still evolves. Yeah. And we have to evolve with it. And so she said, I'll do TikTok. So we started this TikTok channel. It was just hilarious. And, you know, it wasn't really doing very much. And then about 2 weeks ago, she put on a little video just cut from some events that we'd done at the very end of January, and just say, you know, you should be family raving in 2023. It was about 10 seconds. It was nothing. It was all just silly pictures, people having a great time. Lovely, it's what we do, but, you know, and it's had over 2.5 million views on TikTok. And that's just brilliant. And then there's all these chitter chatter on it, people going, you know, oh my gosh, are you in my area? You know, all these people who hadn't heard of us before. Yes. And interestingly, it's caused a lot of interest
through all of these different channels in the different audiences.
Interestingly, it's caused a lot of interest in the States, and so that may give rise to how we connect with people who want to do it in the States and other places in Europe as well. As well as we saw a big uptick, very importantly, on sales of tickets across the country too. You know, this is what you want. It's what you want. The one you want. So some of the things that are both the challenges are also, as I say, the opportunities. Yes. And it's kind of working your way through it. And I guess one of the things I used to worry about really early on, and this is the nature of events, this is the nature of the business I do, is that you can have really catastrophic things happen to the venues, like the ceiling will fall in the night before. And so that, you know, and you know, there'll be, you know, God forbid, but it has happened. There's been terrible fighting incidents and things like that. And yeah, there will be issues with venues. There'll be DJs who can't suddenly turn up, who can't, and then and through the first few years, we developed a sort of contingency plan, so we know how to handle each of those as and when, and we've got ways to intervene and sort things out so that the event can proceed. But I used to worry that at some point it might be that we turned up at a venue and it was flooded and we hadn't known, and we had to cancel there and then, and what would that do for our reputation? I now feel that if that were to happen, touch wood, it hasn't that particular event hasn't happened, but touch wood, if there was something like that, that we have over the 10 years we've been doing it, developed such a reputation, people would know that we were trying to do the best by them, our customers, and we wouldn't cancel an event or not proceed with it in any way unless there was no way about it, that so that our reputation would still be the same.
Exactly.
So that's the sort of thing I used to worry about at the beginning. We kind of worked our way through it. And as I say, and also it's weird things like the IT stuff used to drive me crazy. If your printer goes, so you can't print out your door list, I used to have to go on the neighbourhood, get to phone neighbours and say, if you've got a printer, can I come and print up my printer's got, you do what you have to do, work. And it's quite weird. I learned to DJ, just to fill in if necessary. So, which brings me on to my next point, which is then there's been the sort of longer term things. So, you have to do a risk assessment for every single event. So that's all fine. But you also need to do, if you're in terms of business planning, you do need to think about the big challenges that you might have. And I've already mentioned some of the things about venues, and that, for instance, we've had big, awful terrible tragedies such as the Manchester Arena bombing, and that certainly transformed the way that everybody did security in venues, and that hasn't. So there was all these sorts of things, and people were nervous, and so that. But you can't plan for things like a pandemic, right?
Yes.
Right. So that kind of kicked me into hyper business planning mode, because out of nowhere we had to effectively put the business into mothballs, because until now it all seems like, of course, that's what happens and this happens, but until it actually happened back in March 2020, we couldn't really understand what a lockdown. You can't imagine what everything's just going to stop.
And there wasn't really that much preparation for businesses anyways.
It's just, how could you, so I had to put the entire business into mothballs. It was, as everybody listening to this and yourself will remember, it was an immensely stressful and scary time. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how many people were going to die. We didn't know what the impact for this was going to be in terms of our actual lives. And it was really scary. And we were going into lockdown on, I think it was March 21st, 22nd. The schools were finishing. I remember taking the kids into school, and there were fewer and fewer kids going in every day as people started to retreat.
Yeah.
All the queues for the food, that's all been going on. It's all And then, but we'd also, in terms of pure big fish, little fish terms, we'd actually been planning one of our biggest weekends of the year, which was the Mother's Day weekend. So all my regional managers were planning these huge parties that were sold out all across the country. But of course, that couldn't happen. That would have been, even though events did happen that weekend, not ours didn't, but we said, right, we've got to stop them all. So they were all cancelled, right? And I had to quickly provide advice to all the regional managers about how to communicate to customers. And so that was the most important thing: communicate to customers, venues, and everybody, saying this is what needs to happen. Take the decision about, most of us, we put events into the autumn and gave people options. So we did all the customer management. You don't have to do
refunds
we do all that. So that was really intense.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had to give advice to all the regional managers about how to mothball their individual businesses. Meanwhile, the whole nation, everybody was anxious. I mean, in terms of myself, it was obviously the way that I actually pay for my mortgage. It was a very scary, weird time. It was all horrible. But meanwhile, all these events were cancelled. So what I decided to do is that I've got all the DJing equipment in my house. It's just over my shoulder, and I can just about a DJ. If my life depends on it, I can just about DJ. And so I decided I was going to do a live DJ stream on Mother's Day, which was going to be our big thing. So it took me 2.5 days. I was asking all my friends and all my various people, it's like, how on earth do I do this streaming thing? How do I make the technology work? How do I connect it? we did a panic run into central London to buy a microphone because we didn't have one. So that was like the last time out of the house for months. Was going down to central London to go and buy a microphone. And then we went past like the British Museum, and there was like a helicopter, an ambulance helicopter in the grounds of the British Museum, ready for everything. And it was so eerie, so creepy. Anyway, late on the Saturday night, I worked out that I could just about do it on live stream on Facebook. I created a Facebook event saying, right, everybody, we know everybody's disappointed, everybody's scared, but I'm going to do a Mother's Day family rave live from my kitchen tomorrow at 2 o'clock. See you there. Went to bed, woke up, 70,000 people said they were going to be watching it on the event.
My gosh.
So we did it, and it was just like, it was chaos. It was brilliant. It was so much fun. And we did 40 minutes, made everybody laugh and have, it was an absolute hoot. Got cut off by Facebook. It was like running an illegal rave. It was all dancing in the kitchen. We did the confetti cannon, snow, everything. We were doing it all in the kitchen. It was a mess, right? And it was an absolute hoot. And I think it was much needed at that precise moment. I ended up being on Sky News with saying, oh, Hannah's, and in the Daily Mirror and stuff, and it says underneath my face, and my boyfriend videoed me just doing a little interview, sat on our bed, and it's raver under my hair. So
best title ever.
And then we did it. It was on Sky News. It was international. His sister, David's sister, lives in California. She goes, "Why have you just appeared on my news feeds?" Anyway, so there was that, and then from that we decided we were going to do the kitchen raves every weekend, which we did for 18 months, and it moved beyond my house into, first of all, some of the other managers' houses who are actual DJs, and then into some of our really well-known DJs like Slipmat, Mark Archer of Alternate, Aphrodite did one, Chris Liberator did one. They were lovely. We had Anthony Papa in Australia do one for us. So we had them all, and they all just signed up. We had so many. Barry Ashworth, it's too many to mention actually, but we did them, and that went on for 18 months. And I think that it was lovely because it kind of kept the dream alive. I've actually met people at our events who first became aware of us during the kitchen rave time, and just say thank you so much. Yes. That really helped. So it all ties again back to this thing about the ethos about Big Fish Little Fish, about being together on the dance floor, about being supportive, about non-judgmental help and support for families.
Were these events, if I remember correctly, they were not free. So that's how you were able to continue the business, right?
No, they were free.
Oh, they were free.
Did not make a penny from them.
So how did you keep afloat then?
Everything, we mothballed the entire business. We mothballed the business, which was hard. Well, it wasn't hard to mothball, but basically all my outgoings, I just reduced to nothing. That was it really. I had a little local authority grant for a small amount of money just to keep us afloat and help us sort of reopen, but everything just reduced to nothing.
Because there's no furlough for you.
No, I had furlough, but it was a very small amount because the way the business is constructed is a limited business with me as a shareholder. So anyway, which you can all get on Companies House, that information. So it was very hard. But then what was lovely is that when we, came alive again and reconnected with the world. So we first had to start running events, obviously, with certain restrictions in place. Yes. Absolutely right. We always followed the best guidance and rules available. We reduced some of the things we did. Some of that we used to apply transfer tattoos and hand stamp people. We stopped all that when we first reopened. Yeah. We also, everybody did the lateral flow tests and things, both the staff, and we asked everybody who was coming to do one as well. And so we reopened at that point. And what was really, really interesting is at the point we reopened, we had not just people who'd known us before the pandemic. We managed to reach the brand new parents, people who'd become parents for the first time during the pandemic. And indeed some people who'd become aware of us by doing the online raves.
Yeah.
So, and then they were able to come along in person like that. So we just basically switched everything back on, switched on all our social media, our direct mailing list, all these different ways we have communicating with people, and just went back out there, and people were delighted. I mean, we were worried about how people would respond, about will people feel weird about being with large groups of people, particularly people with babies who've never been to, like, you know, they've never done baby groups, let alone something like this. And I would say for the first few months it was a little bit, people were a little bit wary, but mostly extremely positive and relieved to just be able to see other people again and be with other people in the same room. Then, if you remember, there was a little bit of up and down in the autumn of 2021 and then we went into another lockdown, and so there was, and again we just had to manage the events, and then get from what year am I in now, but the 12-month period ending September 2022, we ended up having the highest revenue that we've ever had, and that, I think, shows the people's desire to connect,
because all the greater demand that you generated during the pandemic is now being picked up.
And it's just like people are just like, we can be with other people again. People just miss human connection so much, and so if anything, it's taught us more than ever how much we as humans really want that and need that in our lives. And so once we were able to run the events in the normal way, everybody just came flooding back, and it's just been great. Then you've got other things. If you're talking about risks and challenges to the business, obviously the more recent one has been the cost of living crisis. And we were concerned that perhaps that would mean, again, that people are, our events would be less popular. But as I mentioned earlier on, I think that we remain, we haven't increased our prices, and we are an affordable luxury. People might not be, there'll be some people who might be not going on quite as glamorous holidays as they might have done, but what they will do is come to a couple of ours instead, because they know we're fun, and that they'll have a really nice time. So in fact, it was shortly after we started back again after the pandemic, Emma Barnett, the Newsnight and Women's Hour presenter, just came along. We had no idea she was going to be there. She came along. I spoke to her in the queue. I didn't recognize her. I didn't know who she was, but I just spoke to her in the queue. And she came along with her child and family, and they had the most wonderful time at Fabric. It was our Fabric one in the September, and she wrote about it for the newspaper. This amazing article where she just fundamentally got what we were about and what we were trying to do, and it was all in this sort of broader context about what had been happening to the world and the importance of all this, and she name checked us over and over again. And again, that was another big sort of like, oh, that's lovely, thank you very much. But that's it. It's always been about making those connections with people, and it's finding our tribe. So we stick true to what Big Fish Little Fish is about, and we always we really respect and want to help our customers, and as I said, we won't be for everybody, but for those we are for, they do tend to really engage with it and really love us.
How do you feel when you have an event and you sell out and there's clearly demand for more tickets? How do you go about, because obviously you're limited by venue capacity, right? But you're like, oh my God, I could have had another 50 people, 100 people.
Classic supply and demand question. So again, over the 10 years, we have had events where we have oversupplied the events in an area, and so we just realized we have to do it less often. Sometimes venues, they see us, we sell out, and they get this huge crowd in, and they go, can you do it every month? We now know, and they'll almost pressurize us into doing it, and it's just like, no, because that's one way to spoil it. Right? And so we play, I always say we have a wide portfolio of venues, so we still do pubs at the end of the road. I play the Balham in the Bedford in Balham, or I play the Amersham Arms, which is an iconic, like, you know, old toilet venue in South London, which is, but I love the Amersham. Sorry, that's not meant as a derogatory way of describing it, but then, you know, those sorts of venues are the iconic gig venues of old, and the Amersham Arms in New Cross. But we also then do huge ones like Fabric. We play festivals. We play places like the Victoria and Albert Museum, the National Gallery, Museum of London Docklands. We've played in castles. I still want to play Cave. I want to play Chislehurst Cave. So if anybody ever hears this and they got control of Chislehurst Caves, I want in. We've played from up in Inverness all the way down to Plymouth. We've played down in Sydney. We've played in Perth and Adelaide. We actually even got shipped out once to play a festival in Athens, and that was amazing.
Ooh.
Oh, I know. So yes, so it's you know, we now, I like to say that we're a very flexible little thing. So they bring us in to places like the V&A because we provide a slightly different offer to their regular clients, and we also bring in a group of people that might not otherwise be aware. We kind of make them cool, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, you're transferring your brand equity
we kind of
to a
make
different
it cool.
institution. Yeah.
And it's really fun. I mean, seriously, some of the ones in the V&A we've done have been an absolute hoot. And the National. But on the other hand, somewhere like Fabric, which is obviously very much an adult environment. In fact, it's so adult, you have to be 19. You don't even have to be 18 to go in. You have to be 19 normally. And yet we're the only family event they have in there, because we know, because they realise that it's we're very professional. We do these things really well. We've just done our 7th event with them. They love us in Fabric. We love them. Our audience, I've met people in Fabric there with their child who met at Fabric, and I mean, that's like, yes,
so cool.
You know, it's like, oh, it makes me cry, you know, when you hear these stories. And it's so with Fabric, it's about that it gives them that sort of something, a bit of another feather to their bow, sort of, in a way. It kind of means that they can say, look, we don't just appeal to the completely, you know, spangled 20-somethings. We also have this amazing family, award-winning family event that comes in, the original family rave. And they just love that. And they know that we run things really safely, really well. I bring in a team of stewards. I always think it's very important to have control over as much as you can in what you do. I always say it's much better to have everything sort of in-house with you if you possibly can. So for instance, when we're at venues, it's sometimes different if we're being paid as performers and we're at a theatre or something like that. But normally I travel with my craft manager, my DJs, the stewards. I myself run the operational thing. And that'd be another thing I would say to those in SM setting up in business. It's not just at the beginning that you have to learn how to do all the bits and pieces normally your IT team would do, and your designers and this, that and the other. You know, you have to know how every bit of your business works and be able to do it if necessary. Right. So in my case, that means that I am the operational manager of an event. I am I am at the front door checking that tickets are going well, the queue is moving smoothly and that everybody's happy. I'm walking through the dance floor. I'm handing out transfer tattoos to crying children. I'm talking to parents to check everything's okay. I'm on the stage doing the snow machine, dancing next to the DJ. You have to be able to do all of it. And only then can you actually delegate it for other people to do and train them to do it in the right sort of way. And you still need to keep a good overview over it all as it goes on. So that would be another sort of tip for the top, really. And it's also a really good way to keep learning from every event and to keep that process of evolution going. Because by talking to the customers, by seeing how they interact with different aspects of the effects we do, the music we play, do you think, okay, well, maybe I can tweak it this way, or this audience prefers a bit more UK garage, maybe, you know, things like that. So
yeah.
So
I think that's absolutely spot on advice for anyone that has a small business, right? You have to be completely inside of how the sausage is made, so that
Yes.
you know what you're delivering, and then you can start, like you say, delegating and teaching others. So what's next for Big Fish Little Fish, Hannah?
Well, I mean, the nice thing about it is 10 years in, I still love every single party that I run as if it was my first. And in fact, if anything, I possibly prefer them because I'm slightly less nervous. Although a bit of nerves is good, it just means you care. So I continue to produce something that I enjoy going to, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
I still have a thing about, every year we do slightly different events, different venues. Some of these changes are forced upon us. Some of them are new opportunities that are given to us. I'm also very interested in this idea of taking it out more internationally. So I'll need to spend some of my time doing that. It has actually been quite a busy last couple of years since we reopened, because not only was I getting my events off the ground again, I was also working and supporting with the regional managers to restart those as well. And some of those still need a little bit of help and support too, to kind of sort of come together. It's, as I say, it's an ever evolving thing. I'm always finding new DJs as well, who it's like, for instance, one of Bicep is a huge fan. I love Bicep, and one of Bicep is a big fan of ours and keeps coming to them, and he goes, yeah, I'll play you. And I was going, great, how do you make this happen? And I don't know if I'll ever get it matched together with our diaries. I mean, probably last time I thought of this, he was like in Australia, and I was like, oh, that's never gonna happen. So so all this sort of thing remains brilliant. There are both people I would like to work with, venues I would like to play, and countries I would like to take us to, still growing and all that. So it's a lot of fun. And, even in terms of the way we deliver, learning new ways and new effects that work well on the dance floor, different genres of music, keep that moving on as we get, the parents are that much. I'm in my 50s now, you see, so the 30-something-year-old parents, they all grew up listening to different music on clubs from what I did, and I need to make sure that that's properly taken accounts of what we play. So it's just more of the same, but also
different.
The same. So yeah, more the same but different. And it's always going to be about being, by families, for families, together on the dance floor.
What a fantastic proposition, Hannah. I think that every event that I have attended has been an absolute joy to be in. And like you say, it does give you that sort of like previous parent self back, but also that opportunity to share with your children, something that you absolutely enjoy. So thank you so much for sharing once again all of these with me, and all your wisdom from these 10 years accumulated Big Fish Little Fish knowledge. I am genuinely grateful to you for dedicating me this time. So thank you so much. We'll put some links on the interview so everybody can attend the next Big Fish Little Fish event closer to them. And hopefully, we'll have a big 10-year celebration this year. Is there?
Well, that's a thing, actually. I should have said, it's 10 years. I can't work out what to do for the birthday party. For the 5-year one, we played our first ever fabric one. So I don't know. So there'll be that. Oh, one other thing I should mention. We were asked by Apple Music to curate, so people can actually listen to, if you've got a subscription anyway, you can listen to some of our mixes that have been recorded live on the Apple Music channel, which is great as well, which is, the music is the heart of what we do. And so it was lovely to be asked by Apple Music to do that. It was a real recognition of what we aim for.
Fantastic. Well, let us know where this big 10-year blowout is going to be. And we'll be surely seeing you soon. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for asking me. Goodbye.
Bye.